too. Give me a minute.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you peacemakers from all around the world who are watching today, and welcome to the International Leadership Conference hosted by the Universal Peace Federation. My name is Milhan Stevens, and I currently serve as the president of the International Association of Youth and Students for Peace, IAYSP. I will be your moderator for this session on youth initiatives towards peace. We have a top-notch panel that I'm eager to introduce to you all. Each of them have demonstrated the power of youth initiatives and the important role they play in lasting peace. So we have Mr. Koji Matsuda, president of IAYSP International, Ms. Tarina Ahuja, co-founder of the Greater Good Initiative, Mr. Samuel Reed, media and communications manager of the IAYSP Korea, Mr. Kodai Abe, regional leader of CARP Los Angeles, and Reverend Yoshi Manaka, social media manager of the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification USA. Our hope is that by the end of this session, you'll have a better understanding of how these initiatives work and how such ideas could contribute to peace on the Korean Peninsula. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, President Koji Matsuda. As I mentioned before, he is currently the international president of IAYSP. He was born in Hiroshima, Japan in 1965. He graduated from Hiroshima University Department of Educational Psychology and graduated from the Unification Theological Seminary in New York State with a master's degree. He engaged in service projects and educational programs in Brazil from 1996 to 2001. He launched and managed service projects and character education programs for youth in 12 countries, organized a global youth camp with youth from 25 countries and the Youth Festival for Peace with 40,000 people in Sao Tome and Principe in Africa in 2019. He speaks 4 different languages and a father of 4 children who I believe speak the same language. But without further ado, let's welcome up President Matsuda. The floor is yours.
Thank you for inviting me to speak in the session of ILC organized by the Universal Peace Federation. I'm so happy to join this program and appreciate Mr. Milhan Stevens, President of IAYSP USA, for leading this session as a moderator. I'm very grateful to the youth leaders who are joining us in this program as speakers. I'm Japanese and speak Japanese English, Janglish, but I hope you can understand. IAYSP has 48 national chapters all around the world. Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon, known as the Mother of Peace, founded IAYSP to empower many youth to become the lights of the world, who can contribute to the societies, nations, and the world. She said that young people have the keys to the sustainable development of a nation. The United Nations has long recognized that young people are a vital human resource for development and key agents for social change, economic growth, and technological innovation. But many young people do not have a sense of being crucial agents for social change and development. Governments, religious groups are also facing difficulties how to teach young people, even though they know the importance of young people. We, IAYSP, are promoting programs to empower youth and students where they create projects to support SDGs and solve the problems of the community in the Peace Designer Seminar. I want to introduce several projects by IAYSP members. For example, in the pandemic of COVID-19 in Korea, youth and students organized projects to prevent the epidemic activity in the town. They also created several projects to educate youth in Korea about the necessity of the reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Mr. Samuel Reed will explain these projects in his presentation later. IAYSP USA focuses on promoting climate action and environmental protection. For that reason, they did activities such as the cleanup project in the Passaic River in New Jersey, Maryland, and Las Vegas. In Indonesia, young Japanese people planted more than 5,500 trees in an area with no trees or grass. This picture was in 2008, and 12 years have passed since then. Now the environment has changed considerably. In Afghanistan, Paraguay, Cambodia, Benin, Philippines, each chapter of IAYSP is promoting the tree planting projects and campaign. The Philippine IAYSP is developing the 1 billion tree planting campaign started by the government by working with the local governments and national youth organization. IAYSP USA made a special campaign to support these tree planting projects through their website. IAYSP promotes synergy as presentation contest by introducing students' thoughts and solutions about a specific problem they find in society. We hold the International Synergy in April this year. In that event, presenters gave delightful presentations about their projects for supporting SDGs, included one to contribute to the reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Especially in Africa, IAYSP is spreading to 18 countries. The Prime Minister of São Tomé and Príncipe in Africa showed he's interested in our programs of character education and service learning when I met him in 2019. He suggested organizing a summer camp for students because there are no good programs for students in summer vacation. I decided to stay in São Tomé for 3 months, working with the government and young people. IAYSP held educational programs and community service programs jointly organized with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Youth and Sports. 6 global youth camps were set up across the island. 170 local youth and 55 international youth volunteers from 25 nations were involved in this camp that lasted 10 days. During those 10 days, 5 schools and 2 community water points were renovated, and 1 school and 5 community toilets were built. The schedule also included character education, intercultural exchanges, and peace designer program and public speaking contests. After the event, local students were excited to become IAYSP members and contribute to the society, and they created IAYSP clubs in 12 high schools and 2 colleges. They had unforgettable life-changing experiences in that camp by practicing the core values of IAYSP, which are service and living for the sake of others. Around 100 local students who participated in the camp mobilized more than 20,000 youth in this country for the Youth Festival for Peace organized by IAYSP and the government of Sao Tome. And 40,000 people participated in the festival with national TV broadcasting all the programs. Prime Minister and ministers were so happy to see the results of the youth camp and festival. One of the ministers said it was the historical and most impressive youth event in Sao Tome Principe. I could have the firm view that youth have the power to influence people and nations. We implemented the programs organized in Sao Tome in other countries, such as Palau and the Philippines, in partnership with the government. And we will expand them to other countries. For the sake of peace and unification of Korean Peninsula, we need to start an international youth movement, especially between Korea, Japan, and the United States, making a network of NGOs and youth organizations to support people and the youth in North Korea. We dream that international youth and students go to North Korea and lead community service, such as planting trees with local youth and students. We found that many trees were cut in North Korea because they needed to make agricultural fields to maintain their daily life. But because of the lack of forests and trees, the flood damaged many agricultural lands. Kim Jong-un, supreme leader of the North Korea, is now promoting tree planting programs in North Korea, but it was not successful because of the lack of ownership of people. IAYSP USA is searching for the possibility that the international tree planting project organized by IAYSP will be one of the things that will help open the gate of North Korea. They are trying to make it possible by working with other NGO leaders, such as Dr. Song Hong Lee, chairman of the DMZ Forum, who went to North Korea several times and planted an already abundant number of trees in the place. In 1987, I joined the World Cup Convention in Berlin, organized by World Cup, a students' organization founded by Father and Mother Moon. For the unification of East and West Germany, 3,000 youth and students participated in the rally to walk to the Berlin Wall under the dangerous circumstance of the opposition of the communists. President of World Cup, Hyo Jin-moon, the first son of Father and Mother Moon, gave an impressive speech with tears, and 3,000 youth and students prayed together in front of the wall. 2 years later, the Berlin Wall collapsed, and the unification of Germany was accomplished. From my experience, I assure you that the passion and energy of youth can go beyond the walls of nations and change history to be a peaceful world. To end my speech, I will quote the message of two peacemakers. Mahatma Gandhi said, "If you want to change the world, you should be a person starting that change." Mother Moon said in her autobiography, "Those who have a challenging spirit are true youth." Public goal setting can overcome the difficulties and temptation for youth. Everything starts with me. A challenging spirit and the public goal setting are principle for youth. If you want to join an international youth movement, wanting to do something that unifies Korean Peninsula and create your projects for peace, please join IAYSP. Let us work together and cooperate with each other to build a more peaceful nation, a peaceful Korean Peninsula, and a world of peace. May God bless you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, President Matsuda. And yes, please, we definitely extend an invitation to all of you to join YSP. You can go to our website, yspUSA.org. You can join today if you want to help us empower youth to, through community service and character education, to really improve our society, our communities, to be more prosperous and harmonious. So thank you, Matsuda-san, for your great leadership. I'm really proud to be a part of IAYSP for the impact that we're making in the world and the potential we have to work together, all together as youth. Okay, next, I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Ms. Tarina Ahuja. Tarina is a freshman at Harvard College who cares deeply about social justice and civil rights issues. She is the co-founder and executive director of the nonprofit Young Khalsa Girls, a grassroots organization founded in 2012 with a mission of empowering young girls to serve their communities through selfless service and advocacy. She is also the co-founder and president of the Greater Good Initiative, a youth-led, youth-run national policy think tank working to write and advocate for policy at the local, state, and federal levels in the sectors of economy, public health, education, civil rights, and environment. And I understand some legislators have already endorsed some of these policies. She is the youth ambassador for the National Democratic Institute's And Running Start's Disruptor program, an initiative envisioned to increase women's political participation around the world. She was the youth keynote speaker at the Madeleine Albright Lunch and the Foreign Policy Her Power Summit in 2019. She's motivated, it's an understatement, determined and driven to be a person of change, focusing on implementing solutions for our society centered on empathy. At Harvard, she currently serves as a representative on the undergraduate council, Harvard College's student government, a representative on the Service to Society Council, and chair of the Institute of Politics Civics program. Please join me in welcoming up Ms. Tarina Ahuja.
Hello, everyone. What an honor it is to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation to be speaking today. And thank you to all of the other incredible panelists that I have such profound honor to be speaking alongside. To start off, I ask everybody listening to just reflect on the moment that we live in, the issues that we face, the movements that we are witnessing. Whether it's climate change, vast inequality, or thinking about infrastructure, whatever it is, we see young people at the front lines of organizing. Whether it's youth climate organizers getting the attentions of the world's foremost leaders to think that things need to be moving, or thinking about young people that are bringing global attention to anti-colonialist and anti-imperialist movements. Youth are the ones sounding the horn that things need to be happening. Right now, we live at a critical cross-section, faced with an ailing planet, rampant inequality, and conflicts in every corner of our world. We were handed a world on fire. But here's the thing. Young people hold what we like to call radical empathy. I perceive empathy as this idea that we not only seek to understand, but to act upon the lived experiences of our fellow human beings. Like President Matsuda mentioned, this radical empathy means living for the sake of others, sharing the burden of someone else's struggle, even if we might not be the ones to face it. In every age, in every era, youth have emerged as the radical imaginers and radical empaths, and that is abundantly more true with current generations of young people. Why, you may ask? It comes out of mandatory vision and inevitable bravery. Vision for a better world, thinking and imagining and being the idealists, thinking about what can we achieve, but also having the inevitable bravery to start taking action to get us there, to start moving, start shaking, and start creating what we think could be. When we come together across generations, taking the wisdom and experience of our elders, our capacity for change is inevitable. The supernovas of change are inevitable. There's this quote that's quite common by Jose Rizal that says, "The youth is the hope of our future." And while that may be true, I'd also like to push back on that and say that youth are the hope of the present. Whether it's being leaders in our own communities, leading a community service project, whether it's having a big dream that we won't give up on, whether it's protesting in front of our country's capitals, whether it's creating an organization to talk about peace, whether it's taking a risk, young people have the imagination and idealism and the vision necessary to take us forward. And that's because of what we were born into. Let me tell you my story of radical empathy. This time last year, closer to March, we experienced a pandemic for the first time. Young people across the country were seeing lives change in a way that was indescribable. We were taken out of our schools, doing school virtually for the very first time in human history. We were born in a social age, being connected to everyone and everything. And just like that, we were isolated into our own little pods. That was difficult. And it was a unique experience that only our generation is going to get to experience, and thinking about how our coming of age stories were cut short. During this time, I found myself reflecting quite a bit on the power of young people. Every time you turned on the news, you would see a different young person doing something. You would see young people delivering groceries to our elders, young people making videos to cheer up our elders or COVID patients, seeing young people knit masks and deliver them to local hospitals, seeing young people donate food to healthcare heroes, seeing young people step up at home and help their parents with errands, with groceries, with running the house, whatever it may be. But we saw a lack of young people in the rooms where decisions are made, even though oftentimes we are the primary stakeholders, whether it be with education policy, economic policy, public health policy, which is why I and a friend saw a need to get young people involved in public policy. Because we see young people as mobilizers and organizers, but we don't see young people at the literal tables where decisions and plans for our futures are being made. And with that, I co-founded an organization called the Greater Good Initiative. This organization is a youth-led policy think tank, the first of its kind, that is taking the thoughts and the ideas of young people, turning it into actual policy, and advocating for that policy to legislators, to federal governments, to local governments, and thinking about the ways that young people should have a say. And let me tell you, this is all founded on the idea of radical empathy. The idea that when we take a step further to not only understand, but act, to share burdens of marginalization, and to think about what it means to come together from different backgrounds, different corners of the world, different races, different ethnicities, understanding that that synergy of perspectives is what brings immeasurable power. And we've seen the power of what we are able to achieve as young people. Now, in thinking about the conflict in the Korean Peninsula, let me give a disclaimer that I may be no expert on the issue itself, but what I consider myself an expert in is youth engagement. In looking at statistics in a survey conducted by the Education and Unification Ministries on 68,750 students enrolled in elementary, middle, and high schools from November 2nd to November 30th of last year, 62.4% said that the two Koreas need to unify. 6.9 percentage jump point from a similar poll conducted a year ago. Among students who saw the need for unification, 28.4% cited a reduction of the threat of war, while 25.5% mentioned common ethnic roots as the reason. Right there, you see the power and the genuineness and the idealism of young people, and that idealism is a strength that is going to continue to take us forward. So to those listening, I would ask you, don't undermine or discount the power of a young person with an idea, because I promise you that young person will come to surprise you and surpass any expectation you might have had. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tarina. You know, I'll never forget one of the first times we had a chance to talk in a conversation. I said something like, I never liked the word youth because it was like an asterisk next to your name that you can get a pass on things, but we don't need a pass. I think we do have something to offer, contribute to whatever conflict or problem that there is in the world. But your response was, why? You know, you see the value of youth as a youth, almost as if, you know, forgive me, I'm in New York City. And I just love how you capitalize on that fact, the energy, the sympathy, the empathy that kind of naturally comes to idealism. I mean, you were 16 years old when you gave that presentation at the Albright conference, and you declared your first sentence was you want to run for president of the United States. And I'm like, talk about like an idealism, but I mean, look at you. I mean, I think we're all looking and we should be taking notes for some of the things you've said about these statistics you brought up in Korea, and youth absolutely will play a role, and we will play a role in creating peace there. So thank you so much for your talk, and I hope we continue to work together as we will. I know you have to run, and then you're welcome to do that if you need to. Okay, our next speaker is Samuel Reed. Samuel studied politics and economics in London before working for a number of years in political campaigning and strategic communications. Since coming to Korea, he has worked in the Korean IAYSP headquarters, initially leading a team which runs sustainable development goals related campaigns from the UN, and now leading a team which creates a variety of media content. He's 33 years old, married to a Korean, and has a baby daughter. Samuel, so glad you could join us.
Hey man, yeah, nice to be here with you all. Thanks for the invite. Yeah, thank you both to President Matsuno and also Tarina for their previous speeches. It's really good to hear from everyone. I wanted to just speak to you briefly about what Korean YSP is doing for unification. This session is all about youth initiatives towards peace, and especially focusing on reunification. So, of course, Korea YSP has something to say about that, and it's one of our major focuses actually in the youth activities we're doing. It's not an easy issue. It's complicated. It's a difficult issue, as we all know, as we all can imagine, and especially in Korea, it's politically complex, it's emotionally complex, and the solutions are far from easy. So yeah, I just want to explain what we've been trying to do, and hopefully yeah, that is inspiring to those who are watching, and also can give an insight into what actually can youth do to support reunification, and especially Korean youth. What is it that is possible? So I'll just share some photos as well, to just whilst I'm explaining, to give you sort of a visual idea of what's been going on. Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. Can you all see?
Yes.
Not quite.
We see you.
1 second. Can't see these photos.
Connection's a little spotty, but we saw your screen.
Can you see these photos now?
Just share one more time.
Let's try again. Okay, can you see now? How's that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, we see everything. Looks good. But you need to pull the photos up.
Okay, so can you see the photos now? Looks like a cityscape, right?
Yes.
Is that okay? Milan, can you see everything? Great, okay, sorry about that. So just to introduce some of the main activities we're doing. First off, one of the, I think, major accomplishments of Korean IAYSP recently has been trips actually into North Korea itself. And this was a difficult one to pull off, but working with both the Korean, South Korean government, but also the North Koreans living in Japan, we were able to arrange this trip. These are a community of Koreans called the Zinichi Koreans who are living in Japan and have close connections with North Korea. And through them, we were able to do this trip. And so it was quite, this is a photo actually of Pyongyang from.
You double click on one of those.
You still don't see it?
When you see your windows, you can.
Maybe I'll give up on the photos. It doesn't seem to be working very well. Okay, let me just continue. Anyway, I'll try to give you a visual picture just through describing it. I'll try my best. So we went into North Korea, and I was part of that delegation going into North Korea. At the time, we could only go as foreigners, not actually Korean nationals, because of the strained relationship between North and South Korea, and that was back in 2019. And the second trip was not long after I went, also at the end of 2019. And we were able to see Pyongyang, go to Pyongyang, but also go to a famous mountain range called the Gold Mountains. So even famous down in South Korea for being very beautiful. And it was very eye-opening trip for myself, who had already kind of looked into North Korea and looked into the relationship between North and South Korea quite a lot and studied on it quite a lot. And so it was a very tailored trip, as you can imagine. You know, we saw only what they wanted us to see. But one of our goals there was to carry out a small SDG, Sustainable Development Goal related project, environmental project, which we were able to do. It was sort of very symbolic in a way. It wasn't so big, but it was the beginning of something. And so really our goals going into this trip was that we want to develop a relationship and we want to make a connection. And, you know, the second time we went was the group that went were able to go to more places than we went initially. Unfortunately, the whole COVID situation arose, and since then we haven't been able to go back. But I think that relationship still holds strong and that experience there. And so we're hoping that within, you know, the next few years in the future, we want to continue sending groups there and building more on the projects that we've done, hopefully doing even more. And so, as President Matsuda mentioned in his presentation, for example, there's like no trees on the mountains. It's something actually I noticed whilst I was there. And it's quite a strange phenomenon, but, you know, they cut them down for fuel and firewood. And so that kind of thing, you know, there's definitely a potential for like service work and environmental projects to go and support the North. And so that was a very interesting project. But you may wonder, like, okay, well, you know, what is the deeper purpose behind all of this? How, you know, how can we really, what is the situation between North and South Korea, and how can we, you know, solve this? What is it that we can actually do? So the current situation concerning youth in South Korea is that there's more and more, as time goes on, there's more and more sort of disengagement with the issue. Latest statistics say that about 20% of young people are against reunification, about 30% are for just peaceful coexistence, not actually unification. The other 50% are for. So compared to the older generations, that's actually quite a lot less. It's been reducing over time. And as you can imagine, with time, there comes disconnection and less of a, it becomes less of a real thing to young people, a lived experience. And so this is one of the main problems that South Korea faces, is that the less people pay attention to the North Korean issue, the less they really care about it. And so there was interesting stats saying that people who think about North Korea often, then their support for reunification actually goes up a lot, or doubles almost. And so one of the main goals for YSP Korea is to try to raise awareness, to get people thinking about North Korea in a positive way. As you can imagine, a lot of the news coming out of North Korea is not good, is negative. And so how can we get young people thinking about North Korea positively, thinking about the benefits of reunification, the benefits, even personally for themselves, and to empathize in a positive way with North Koreans. And that's kind of the first goal. The second goal would be to try to also build relationships amongst NGOs, amongst with the South Korean government, to try to project or boost YSP, Korean YSP projects to another level, to a bigger level, to reach more people and to get the backing and the funding of these big organizations, which sort of lends a lot of clout to what we're doing. And so, anyway, this, like I mentioned, this North Korean trip was a big win for the Korean YSP. And other things that we've been doing, like I mentioned, awareness raising through trying to reach out to people through, especially media, via the internet, and in a way that young people can relate to. So we've done an interesting series of different sort of events, and you could maybe describe them almost like chat shows or kind of formats with Korean young people. In English, they called the title was Anyway Unification. So, and they tried to, the idea was to try to invite very kind of dynamic and interesting experts and speakers to talk to young people. And so we were able to bring North Korean defectors and even some celebrities who have expertise in this area to discuss the issue and to talk to people and to answer their questions. And we had a really interesting, in the most recent one, we had a quite famous German celebrity who lives in Korea and speaks Korean really well, but was able to explain the perspective from a German who went through the reunification in Germany back in a few decades ago. So so that way we've been trying to connect to young people in a way that isn't just always what they hear from the news in a negative kind of desensitizing sort of way, but in a kind of a new and a fresh and from a different perspective. And then also we've had tried to really encourage more of a grassroots approach, and quite a lot of young people connected to YSP and have been setting up their own, for example, YouTube channels or Instagram channels. One project called UniUs, which is all about unification and trying to discuss and disseminate thoughts about unification in interesting ways through new media. So anyway, for all these different approaches to the reunification issue, thankfully, we've been able to get some success in terms of recognition. And the Ministry of Unification in South Korea awarded our president of YSP Korea, Will Kim, with an award for his efforts and overall YSP Korea's efforts towards reunification in South Korea. And I think as we go ahead, we're thinking about, okay, what is next? And there's been a proposal by the South Korean government of a South Korean 2032 Olympics, and we think about, okay, there's an opportunity maybe from a youth perspective to have a sort of a supporting and awareness campaign to try to encourage youth to get involved and think about what would that mean to them and why that would be a good thing. So there's a lot to come on the horizon. Our next anyway, unification talk is going to be in the DMZ with journalists, talking to journalists about reporting on the North Korean issue and getting young journalists to come and join and participate in some competitions and some activities with them. So that's looking positive. So I think in the end, we have to be realistic about the issue of North and South Korean unification. It's not easy. It's complicated, politically fraught, and unfortunately, a lot of young people don't have a lot of awareness of it, or have other things they care about, jobs and family and, making money. But, we're thinking about, okay, let's think realistically, how can we raise awareness? How can we get support from the government and other NGO organizations to really capture people's attention and young people's attention and remind them why this is such a vital, important issue for the nation. So, yeah, anyway, in a nutshell, that's what's going on in IAYSP Korea. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Yeah, Samuel, thank you so much. I can't express how much we appreciate you being here. And that is a reminder, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. And if we can't get to them during this program, we'll get back to you at some point. But yeah, Samuel, I'm so grateful for the efforts that you're making there. I mean, I didn't know that we were given an award for our work from the Ministry of Reunification. I think, again, it's the young people that is the hope we have to continue these efforts and hopefully not extend too much longer. Maybe even within a few years, we can see some major shift. And so thank you for your work. Because ultimately, Korea has to be the one to unite. We can do what we can from over here. But yes, we understand there's a lot of interesting intricacies to the whole conflict. Okay, again, thank you. And let's go to our next speaker, Kodai Abe. Kodai has been an active member and leader of the Collegiate Association for the Research of Principles, CARP, in the Los Angeles area for over 5 years, leading the activities at both Cal State Long Beach and Cal State Fullerton. He is the leader of choice to represent the thriving CARP LA chapter to the world. He did so last year by winning first prize in the IAYSP's flagship competition, Synergy. Here he presented the works of the Hyojung Conference that gathers a growing movement with a new vision for a unified Korea inspired by Father and Mother Moon. He does all this while keeping up with his undergraduate studies in business. Now, please help me in welcoming up Mr. Kodai Abe.
Thank you so much, Milhan. Yes, hello members of the International Leadership Conference. Great to see you all. Thank you for your time. Once again, my name is Kodai Abe. I'm here just representing Los Angeles, more specifically CARP LA, and the initiative that my fellow brothers and sisters have been organizing. And so if I can just quickly share my screen. Yes, I hope you can see that. So yeah, we wanted to resolve an issue that definitely is a topic that's going to be heavily discussed, or it's already been heavily discussed today, and that is the topic of the division of the Korean Peninsula. And so to tackle this issue, I wanted to share the initiative called the Hyojung Conference, derived from LA. And so this is a global youth movement that raises passionate leaders with God-centered values to resolve the ideological conflict in the world in order to realize Korea, a unified Korea, which is the key to world peace. This is also our mission statement. So this is why our purpose with the Hyojung Conference is to create a global youth movement that raises passionate leaders with God-centered values to resolve the ideological conflict in the world in order to realize a unified Korea. So once again, the key to world peace. And we will make the movement according to the vision of Reverend Sun Myung Moon and Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon for youth as leaders to make a new future with interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values by unifying the Korean Peninsula. And so I wanted to express a problem with the North Korean regime, which stems from the ideal of communism. right, which is an ideology based on atheism/materialism. And as a result of communist countries, there has been over 65 million people killed between 1917 and 2017. And as we may all know, North Korea is definitely heavily formed from the ideas of this. And so recently there may have been efforts to make peace between the two Korean leaders, but the tension, we still see the tension to this day, right? People living in this country, right, this North Korean country are still poor, right? They still have bad health. They're still feeding off grass and tree barks. So why is it that we still see this problem and tension? Well, I definitely think that's because no one has sought this reunification of this North and South Korea as our primary goal. So why are we trying to make this as an end goal? And when we know that this is a huge issue, right? We believe that a lot of people are ignorant to this matter. And so just to present some statistics like all of our fellow panelists have been sharing, according to Newsweek Japan, there was a survey conducted to South Koreans, and they were asked if they wanted a unified Korea or stay divided. And similar, I guess, stats as Mr. Samuel Reed has shared, those who wish for unification was only at 26.3%, while those who wish, I guess, no unification was 54.9%. Right, so as you can see, that many people, even those residing in Korea, right, they're not willing to stand up for unification. So how are we going to bring awareness to this issue then? Well, in order to overcome this battle, we need more than just delivering the importance of this matter, right? We can't just have ideas, thoughts alone, but we need leaders that can take action, right? Leaders that can raise the new generation centered on God. And this is why I really respect Dr. Sun Myung Moon, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, because they have dedicated their lives for the sake of establishing a peaceful world. And so as they have said, and as all my other panelists have emphasized on the aspect of youth, right? A leader is like a treasure that must come out and raise the new generation. And this is precisely what the young people are, right? Even Father and Mother Moon, they have believed in the power of the young people to unify together, defend the nations, right? And prevent the destructions of the people. So the conferences we have held now are online, right? These Hyojun conferences are online. But before the pandemic, we actually had these physical trips called the Hyojun trip, where we went to Korea. So in 2017, we organized the Collegiate Symposium on North and South Reunification at the City Hall of South Korea. Right here, we had student representatives from Korea, Japan, and America present and testify to the importance of Korea reunification. Then in 2018, we went to the DMZ border, where we held a rally proclaiming Godism and offered prayer for reunification. And this young people, the students, can see the divided land on the other side of this fence. And people were offering sincere and tearful, heartfelt prayers as they see the divided land. And within the same year, we held another rally at Gwanghwamun, Korea, which is located at the heart of Seoul, and held a rally for, once again, the reunification of North-South Korea in the middle of this bustling, busy city. And, you know, the funny thing is, someone told us that we can hold our event here, but they recommended us to probably not have any prayers. And so, you know, what did we do? Well, naturally, we held a big unison prayer with 300 plus young students shouting at the top of our lungs, praying that God needs to exist here in this country, that we need God to resolve the issues here. And that was the heart of all the young people. And so with the pandemic, rather than continuing to meet up physically, we use this opportunity to have multiple online Hyojun conferences. And so far, we held it a total of 5 times, and already over 9,000 people have viewed this event. And so we wanted to attract young people to this event and made efforts to invite influential people such as Kanye West and other well-known gospel singers. And the Hyojun conference has allowed many young students to realize the importance of Korea reunification. And so our efforts were recognized by religious, academic, political leaders across the world, some of which are and were attending this very conference that we have right now. And those names are Bishop Noah Jones, who's a senior pastor of City of Refuge, Honorable Dan Burton, former U.S. House of Representatives, Dr. Thomas Ward, Dr. Thomas Sullivan, leaders in the education field, and Chairman Sung Kwak-suk, chairman of the National Rally of the North-South Unification Movement. And each single one of these individuals offer to give words to the youth and the efforts that we are making. And so from the 4th and 5th Children Conference, these are just a few of the many individuals that have came out. We got the great Reverend Michael Jenkins. I saw him earlier. This man needs no introduction. Congressman John Doolittle. We have Dr. Teddy Che, former president of Korean Association North Los Angeles. Elder Perry from City of Refuge. Pastor Dietrich Haddon from Hill City Church. We also had Professor Grace Apiafi, who's a professor who's helping support one of our CARP chapters here in LA. They've all helped us support in this initiative. We also interviewed the Korean War veterans to discuss their experience in fighting in the front lines of the Korean War. They explained the things they've seen and went through, and really bringing a better picture to the conflict of North and South, which gave further clarity to this battle against this satanic country. We also showed our father and mother Moon's video of their visit to North Korea, talking to President Kim Il-sung, like trying to reunify the two countries. And so Father and Mother Moon showed us how to really overcome the division between the two nations, and that is to love, like have the heart of sacrifice and care more than anyone else. Like this is one of the important pieces that's going to lead to the reunification movement. And so in order to promote the Hyojong Conference to the youth, we have created a Facebook, Instagram page and use it to broadcast the conference live. And so we had to organize separate Zoom rooms because this was held, of course, with the Korean students as well as the Japanese students. We had to have separate Zoom rooms to organize translations. Right? So we had Korean students, individuals go into one Zoom room, hear the Korean translation, Japanese another to hear Japanese translation. And the young people had to write a whole script in preparation for this event. And the translation of this script actually took quite a lot of time as well. And so in order to organize this 1 hour event, the young people had to prepare weeks in advance. And so the plan from now is we're trying to organize the Hyojong trip where we actually go to Korea, of course, immediately once the situation allows. But until then, we plan on having these Hyojong conferences still. We've also collaborated with YCLC, the Young Christian Leadership Conference, to work alongside American Christian leaders to impact Korea for North-South unity. And meanwhile, we've also been reaching out to the Koreans living here in LA to also gain their support in our endeavors. And so just real quickly, our hearts behind organizing all of this is that we wanted to unite with Mother Moon's direction of having all these organizations working towards the purpose of unifying the Korean Peninsula. This is something she's always been talking about alongside with her late husband, Father Moon. Really, they have invested their whole lives to seed peace between these two countries. And so us as students, we've been trying to do our best to also help support their mission as well. Us students, we're not experts at emceeing. And we need to that's why we need to create a whole script beforehand. And we're not experts at translation. We got to also prepare that beforehand. We're not experts at creating videos. These students, they had to learn things that they never thought that they had to do. But we kept doing it and doing it. We've held multiple Hyojong conferences, one after another, despite school, despite working at our jobs, for the very reason as we really want to see peace between this country. And we really love God. We really respect Father Mother Moon's endeavors. And so we just really want to do our part and do whatever it takes to really see a reconciliation. So in the end, I'd like to say one more word. The reunification of the Korean Peninsula is not going to happen on its own. In fact, 60.5% of the respondents in South Korea said the United States will likely have the most influence through this reunification process. And so if we stand and witness this huge problem and become bystanders to this, and we are also part of that problem. So I ask that we can take this matter seriously. Through the Hyojong Conference, we would like to raise leaders that can seek to resolve the division, not only in Korea, but also the division that we see throughout the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kodai. What a very heroic effort. And I really want to emphasize how much I appreciate you addressing not just the academic and political, but the religious aspect of what's, what it's really going to take to really bring a miracle on the Korean Peninsula. And so I love how you said how, even though you were kind of discouraged not to pray, you did. That's the power of youth, right? I mean, you just do it, and you don't need to worry about a thing. We're all one family, just doing what needs to be done to bring peace. So thank you so much. Let's go to our final speaker, Ms. Yoshie Manaka. Yoshie is a second-generation unificationist from New Jersey and is the social media manager at the Family Federation for World Peace, USA. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature and Studio Art from the University of Redlands in California, and recently completed her Master of Arts of Religious Studies at the Unification Theological Seminary. She masterfully covered the story of Peace Road 2020, a cross-country pilgrimage to the historical sites across America to gather and pray with the hopes of reconciliation for all people during the height of social unrest. A true peacemaker and friend, let's welcome up Ms. Yoshie Manaka.
Hello, everybody. Such an honor to be here. I'm a little bit worried. I think my internet connection is unstable, so please, Mohan, interrupt
We'll
me.
work with you. Yeah, if something cuts out, you can just come right back. Maybe you were right. Maybe there's a concern. Okay. Well, maybe wait a few more seconds. Let's see, are there any questions maybe we can look at?
Milhan, 1 minute. She called in on her phone, and so
Yeah.
I'm promoting her to panelists on her phone, so I think she can speak.
Perfect, thank you.
Yoshie, you're here
Okay,
now, right?
I apologize. Here I am. 1 sec. New headphones in. Okay, can you hear me? Is everything okay?
You sound great.
Great, okay. Okay, so Milhan mentioned Peace Road in my introduction. Thank you, Milhan. And so, yes, I wanted to speak about that. Yes, during the month of August 2020, I was very lucky to be a part of the Peace Road USA team, which carefully and with a lot of disinfectant and hand sanitizer traveled to 50+ spots that had historical significance to America, praying together with locals who are working in their communities to bring reconciliation and peace. The Peace Road 2020 team consisted of 6 diverse young people, 2 older drivers, and Dr. Michael and Minister Reiko Jenkins. During the tour, we visited sites of great historic accomplishments, as well as suffering and injustice throughout America. Peace Road is a project introduced by Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon to promote an initiative announced by her late husband in 1981, an international highway that physically connects all people of the world together. Since 2015, Peace Road events have taken place annually across the world and usually include an element of walking and biking. The COVID-19 pandemic and the murder of George Floyd added a new flavor to America's Peace Road initiative in 2020. The pandemic and stay-at-home orders arguably led to a magnified response and upheaval following Floyd's death. America was reeling from social unrest and needed faith leaders and community leaders to reignite a sense of brotherly love and compassion. America needed to be reminded of the good in the nation. The pandemic also made this a challenge. In-person meetings needed to be limited. Faith leaders were unable to tend to their flocks in the normal ways. Inspiration needed to come from the internet rather than from a church hall. And people suffered. And we needed to find a safe way to conduct Peace Road while encouraging people to follow their local government guidelines. I had spent the few preceding months stuck in inaction, feeling very deeply that there's pain and conflict in the world, and quite literally stuck at home. I felt like I had no words to describe what I was feeling, and I felt guilty for not being able to say or do anything to create change because I was not informed enough on the issues to know what kind of change was needed. So the opportunity to participate in Peace Road 2020 came like a breath of fresh air. Finally, there was something to pour my effort, heart, and sincerity into. And so after so many months of inaction, I was thrown suddenly into a flurry of action. I didn't know what to expect from the experience, but it was clear to me that this tour was an active prayer for the healing of America. It was a gesture that felt like it meant something. It was a practical and spiritual answer to the questions and conflict bubbling up in America. As the resident Family Fed USA media team member, many responsibilities fell on me to ensure that people who couldn't attend in person could still feel fully invested in the tour. Milhan Stevens, the Peace Road national coordinator, and I pitched the concept as something of a Peace Road reality TV show. The young people on the team were not media trained, but they were enthusiastic, and we became a traveling event team. We were involved in the setup, running of the events. We were speakers, photographers, and reporters. Because of a limited budget, we weren't exactly a reality TV show. However, the constant social media coverage became the name of the game. Throughout our trip, we made an effort to capture and share honest reflections, both on camera and written, and we placed a high importance on the quick turnaround of engaging quality content when it came to editing and uploading reports and reflections. And during that 1 month, Peace Road USA's Facebook page went from 100 followers to 1,100 organic followers. I believe that our work with Peace Road 2020 is an example of what can be done when we utilize social media coverage effectively. And given our limited time and resources, really only scratches the surface of what the potential is. I place high importance on the collection of high quality deliverables, and by deliverables, I mean photos, videos, and reports for 3 reasons. 1, for the sake of longevity and documenting history for future generations. 2, high quality video and audio is an act of service to the audience. I want them to have the best possible experience so that their experience is comparable to watching the event in person. And finally, for marketing and public image purposes, the more professional our deliverables look, the more legitimate we look to the public. I feel so passionate about effective media coverage because my experience of Peace Road is not just about people riding bikes at landmarks. My experience visiting these 50 locations gave me an opportunity to learn about the complicated history of America, not turning away from it in disgust, really looking at it and taking ownership of it, claiming it as my history too. I am an American. I have responsibility for America. America is my family. The fathers of this country are my ancestors too. More than anything, we got to see that there are people in every city doing the hard work of reconciliation. It's not flashy, it's messy, it hurts. It takes years and years of effort. It takes getting mad and lashing out and showing up again. It requires humility and the concentrated effort to keep your defenses down, because accountability feels like an attack if you're not fulfilling your responsibility. It requires 2 interested parties and a whole lot of inner strength to say, I forgive you. The International Peace Highway isn't just a concept to me anymore. It's so much deeper than that. It's an emotional call to heal the heart of the world. And my intention, together with the Peace Road team, was to take people on that journey with us so that they could catch the spirit and emotion too. And if you want to really convey that heart, you can't just hand someone a smartphone with no instructions and hope for the best. But if we learn how to bring people along as the story unfolds through high quality social media and video and written coverage, this is where we can change the world, because we can get people interested and excited and bring them along. And this is how we can shine a light on the Korean Peninsula and bring about not just public awareness to reconciliation between North and South Korea, but emotional investment and popular buy-in in the real issue. So I just want to close by offering something to you. I wrote a whole guidebook actually on Peace Road 2020's social media and media practices as my graduating project for Unification Theological Seminary, in the hopes that it can act as a tool to empower other ministries as we begin to rely on social media communication more and more in the 21st century. So if you would like a much more in-depth explanation of how and why and what we did, that is available to you at yoshieportfolio.com. We can put it in the chat. Anyway, thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.
Yoshie, I don't think we could have concluded this session any better. I mean, really summed up the heart behind everything that we do. I also appreciate the technical details, because those really matter when it comes down to, if you want to be effective in getting your message out, you need to consider not just the technical, but even the emotional details and the ins and outs of that, and what forgiveness really looks like. It's like you said, not pretty. And, you know, a little quick story. Before we launched Peace Road last year, we had a discussion about, is it a good idea to put a bunch of young people in a van for several days on end with all the stress of the, you know, you think, oh, maybe they should be sleeping in separate rooms, have their space, but I also knew that you all had special training, and so that you would be able to handle it. But it takes a very special group of young people like you to make that happen. So again, thank you, Yoshie. And so we're gonna wrap up our session in the next 5 minutes. We don't have time to answer questions, although I don't see very many. So what we'll do is have each panelist share one final comment or reflective point or appreciation, whatever you like to do. And starting with President Matsuda. Oh yeah, if you would all turn your screens on so we can see all the panelists in this final closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much for all presenters. I was so inspired your speech and your experience. I could have a conviction. If young people can work together, we can change the society and we can change the nation and the world. And also reunification of Korean Peninsula can be accomplished. So let's work together, and especially youth in USA are very important. So I was so inspired, your passion and your heart. And you can give more influence to Japanese youth and Korean youth, and also youth of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, President Matsuda. We will not let you down. Let's go to Samuel.
Yeah, thanks a lot for everyone's everyone. I would just say, especially for all the US young people, just keep up to date, keep aware of what's going on in Korea, especially regarding reunification, and see what you can do, how you can help somehow. There's always some way you can contribute. Even with the current situation, there's a lot going online, and eventually, hopefully, when things get better, come and visit and do something with us here in Korea. And it will be great to work. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And finally, oh no, not finally, Kodai Abe. You share next.
Yeah, just wanted to once again just express my gratitude towards all the panelists. I know that we're just one of the very few for just representing the majority on like a whole, really this bigger movement that we're trying to create to reunify the Korean Peninsula. And there's definitely hearts that I'm sure a lot of us, many of us share, even at this moment, that they really want to see this divided land come back together. And so the people here, the people you just heard from, they're just few, right? They're just few out of the whole. So we're going to make this happen. It's going to come true. It's going to come about no matter what. It's just a matter of when. So thank you.
With you all the way, Kodai. It's going to happen one way or another. if I have anything to do with it. And finally, Yoshie.
Yeah, I think I was especially inspired today to hear about what is happening, what the youth of Korea are kind of doing to spearhead the issue and the visits to North Korea. And yes, absolutely, absolutely. I would love to go there and work together with you. Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Yoshie, and thank you all panelists and those the viewers and those of us in the Zoom call right now. We see all of your comments and we feel the hope rising up, and we're more than happy as the youth to provide that that spirit and energy to push through to do what it takes to bring peace on the Korean Peninsula. So with that, we thank you all for joining again, and we'll join you in the next session with the International Leadership Conference. Take care.
Thank you.